They bully the new transfer student, unaware that he is a secret agent. The bell rang, signaling the start of another ordinary day at Cedar High School. The sound of lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking against the linoleum floor, and excited chatter filled the air. In the middle of this chaos stood Alex, the new transfer student. He was tall but unassuming, with messy brown hair that looked like it hadn't seen a comb in days. His dark, thoughtful eyes scanned the hallway as if searching for something or someone. To the students around him, he looked like any other shy kid trying to navigate the minefield of high school. But Alex wasn't ordinary, not by a long shot. At just 17, Alex had been recruited into a classified government program that trained teens to go undercover in the most unpredictable environments, high schools. His mission? To investigate the school board of Cedar High for alleged corruption, embezzlement, and connections to criminal syndicates. It wasn't just about gathering evidence, it was about survival. "Hey, new kid." A loud, obnoxious voice cut through the hallway. Alex turned slowly, coming face to face with Brock, a hulking senior with a smirk that practically screamed trouble. Behind him, his lackeys, Derek and Mason, snickered like hyenas. They were the kind of kids Alex had been warned about, bullies who thrived on picking apart anyone they deemed weaker than themselves. "What's your name, huh?" Brock asked, stepping closer. "Alex," he said simply, his voice calm and steady. "Alex what?" Brock pressed, leaning in as if daring him to flinch. "Just Alex." The answer seemed to irritate Brock, who shoved a shoulder into Alex's arm. The impact was more forceful than Alex expected, but he held his ground, not giving them the satisfaction of a reaction. "You think you're tough, huh? Transferring in here, acting all quiet and mysterious?" Brock sneered. "Let me tell you something. This is my school. You don't get to just walk in here and act like you own the place." Alex tilted his head, studying Brock with an expression of mild curiosity rather than fear. Inside, his mind was already analyzing. He could tell Brock wasn't used to being challenged. His swagger was a defense mechanism, his bullying a mask for insecurities Alex could practically see in his posture. "I'm just here to learn," Alex said, keeping his tone neutral. But Brock wasn't having it. He knocked Alex's books out of his hands, sending papers scattering across the hallway. "Oops," Brock said with mock innocence, his friends laughing like it was the funniest thing they'd ever seen. "Guess you're gonna have to learn how to pick those up too." Alex crouched down to gather his belongings, his face betraying no emotion. Inside, however, he was already filing away everything he'd observed. Brock's watch, a flashy designer model, confirmed Alex's intel. Brock was the son of one of the school board members under investigation. Derek and Mason, while less important, could still be useful pawns in the larger game. As he stood up, Alex locked eyes with Brock. "Thanks for the warm welcome," he said with a small, cryptic smile before walking away. Brock's face twisted in confusion, as if he couldn't decide whether he'd just been insulted or ignored. In his first class, Alex sat quietly in the back, blending into the background. The teacher, a nervous-looking man in his 30s, handed out a pop quiz. Alex completed it in minutes, his sharp mind honed by years of intensive training. He scanned the room, taking note of the other students. Some looked stressed, others bored, but one in particular stood out. A girl with jet black hair and piercing blue eyes who seemed more interested in sketching in her notebook than answering questions. Her name, Alex remembered from his briefing, was Emma. She was the student council president and the daughter of Principal Reed, the man Alex suspected of being the ringleader of the corruption. She would be an important piece in the puzzle, whether she realized it or not. The rest of the day passed in a blur of introductions, stares, and whispered rumors. By lunchtime, Alex had already begun mapping the social hierarchy of the school. Brock and his gang ruled the cafeteria, their table a fortress surrounded by sycophants eager to stay in their good graces. Emma sat with a group of overachievers, her expression distant as though she didn't quite belong. Alex, true to his mission, ate alone. He needed to remain an enigma, just enough of an outsider to attract the bullies' attention while staying unnoticed by the teachers and staff. It didn't take long for Brock to strike again. As Alex walked to his locker after lunch, he found his path blocked by the trio. This time, they weren't alone. A small crowd had gathered, eager for entertainment. "Hey Alex," Brock said, his tone mock-friendly. "How's your first day going? Making lots of friends?" "Yeah, tons," Alex replied without missing a beat. His calmness only seemed to infuriate Brock further. "You know, I don't think you've learned the rules around here yet," Brock continued, circling Alex like a predator. "Rule number 1, respect your betters." "And that would be you?" Alex asked, raising an eyebrow. By the time the final bell rang, Alex had pieced together a clearer picture of Cedar High's social structure. The bullies, led by Brock, were at the center of the school's power dynamics. They had influence not just because of their size and loud behavior, but because of who their parents were. Brock's father was on the school board, Derek's family owned a chain of local businesses, and Mason's father was a well-known lawyer. Together, they acted like they owned the place, and most students stayed out of their way. But for Alex, they were more than just high school bullies. Their families were tied to the very corruption he had been sent to investigate. While Brock had spent the day trying to intimidate Alex had been quietly observing every detail about him. The crowd gasped, some students stifling laughter. Brock's face darkened, and before Alex could react, Brock grabbed the collar of his shirt and slammed him against the lockers. "Listen here, you little. Is there a problem here?" A firm, authoritative voice cut through the tension. The crowd scattered as Emma stepped forward, her arms crossed and her glare locked on Brock. "No problem," Brock muttered, releasing Alex and backing off. "We were just talking." "Yeah, sure you were." Emma rolled her eyes. She glanced at Alex, her expression unreadable. "You okay?" "I'm fine," Alex said, straightening his shirt. Emma didn't reply, but the way she looked at him made Alex wonder if she suspected there was more to him than met the eye. As the crowd dispersed, Alex allowed himself a small, satisfied smirk. The first move had been made. Now it was time to see how the game unfolded. That evening, Alex walked into the school library. While other students might have gone home or headed to practice, Alex had work to do. He found a quiet corner and opened his laptop. From his backpack, he pulled out a small device that looked like a portable charger, but was actually a signal jammer. It blocked any security software from detecting his activity as he accessed classified files. On his screen appeared profiles of the people he was investigating. Principal Reed, the school's leader, had been accused of funneling money from school programs into private accounts. Brock's father, Mr. Garrett, was the head of the school board and one of Reed's closest allies. Together, they had reportedly used school funds to support illegal activities, including laundering money for a larger criminal network. Alex scanned the files, taking mental notes. He couldn't directly accuse anyone yet. He needed hard evidence. For that, he had to get closer to Brock and the others. He also needed to figure out Emma's role. Her father's involvement made her important, but she didn't seem aware of what was happening behind the scenes. If she was innocent, she might become an ally. The next day, Alex's plan to get closer to the bullies started. He didn't avoid Brock and his gang like most students. Instead, he made himself visible but unthreatening, staying just close enough to stay on their radar. In gym class, he noticed Brock showing off during a basketball game, dunking the ball and taunting anyone who tried to guard him. Alex joined the game quietly, picking a spot on the court where no one paid much attention to him. When the ball came his way, he acted clumsy, missing an easy pass and fumbling with his dribble. Brock smirked at Alex's apparent lack of skill, tossing snide comments as he dominated the game. "Nice moves, rookie," Brock said with a laugh as Alex missed a layup. "Maybe try chess next time." The others laughed, and Alex took it in stride. He wasn't there to win. He wanted to see how far Brock would go to humiliate him. As expected, Brock became more aggressive, shoving Alex whenever he got near the ball. Alex stumbled but never reacted, keeping his temper in check. After the game, Brock and his friends were still laughing as they headed to the locker room. Alex trailed behind, his plan working perfectly. Later that afternoon, Alex found himself cornered by Brock again. This time, it was outside the school near the parking lot. Derek and Mason were with him, as usual, their grins wide as they watched Brock step closer to Alex. "You're really something, you know that?" Brock said, "walking around like you don't care about anything. You think you're better than us?" Alex kept his face neutral. "No, I'm just trying to get through the day." Brock didn't like the calm response. He pushed Alex's shoulder hard, but Alex remained standing. Behind them, Derek and Mason egged him on. "Come on, Brock," Derek said. "Teach him a lesson." Alex noticed the tension in Brock's movements. He wasn't just trying to intimidate Alex anymore. He wanted to provoke a reaction. But Alex had no intention of giving him one. Instead, he stepped back, keeping his voice calm. "What's the point, Brock?" Alex said. "You've already made it clear you're in charge here." For a moment, Brock looked surprised, as though Alex's words had caught him off guard. But he quickly recovered, smirking as he leaned in closer. "Don't forget it," Brock said. "Stay out of my way." As Brock and his friends walked off, Alex felt the weight of several eyes on him. Other students had watched the scene from a distance, whispering and exchanging looks. While Brock thought he'd won, Alex knew he was gaining something far more important: attention. The more people noticed him, the more he became a part of the school's ecosystem, which would help him get closer to the truth. That evening, Alex returned to his small apartment, his official home during the mission. It was a modest place provided by the agency, complete with surveillance equipment and secure communication lines. He spent hours reviewing footage he had secretly recorded at school using a hidden camera in his bag. Most of it was routine, students chatting, teachers lecturing, but a few moments stood out. In one clip, Brock was talking to his friends about his father's important meeting with Principal Reed. Another clip captured Derek bragging about how his dad could make problems disappear. It wasn't concrete evidence, but it was a start. Alex filed the clips carefully, knowing they might become critical later. Before going to bed, Alex checked his agency's secure portal for updates. A message from his handler appeared on the screen. Stay focused. The school board meeting in 2 weeks will be crucial. Find a way to get access. Remember, no unnecessary risks. Alex leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The meeting would likely involve the key players in the corruption scheme, but getting access wouldn't be easy. He needed to be inside that room. And to do that, he'd have to earn someone's trust or break down their defenses. As Alex shut off his laptop, he felt the weight of the mission pressing on him. Brock, Emma, Principal Reed, they were all pieces of the puzzle. He just needed to figure out how they fit together before it was too late. The days leading up to the school board meeting were filled with careful planning. Alex knew that if he wanted access, he needed to stay close to the key players. While Brock and his gang continued their attempts to bully him, Alex let them think they were in control. He remained quiet and compliant, all the while observing their every move. One afternoon, Alex noticed Emma sitting alone in the library, flipping through pages of a thick binder filled with school council notes. She looked frustrated, her pen tapping rhythmically against the table. Alex saw his opportunity. Approaching her slowly, Alex kept his tone casual. "Hey, you're Emma, right? The student council president?" She glanced up, surprised. "Yeah. And you're the new guy, Alex?" "That's me," he said. "Mind if I sit?" Emma shrugged. "Sure, but it's nothing exciting, just council work." Alex sat across from her and glanced at the binder. It was filled with charts, numbers, and handwritten notes. To someone else, it might have looked boring, but Alex recognized the financial data immediately. It was tied to the school's budget. "You're handling the budget?" he asked, feigning curiosity. Emma sighed. "Trying to. The numbers don't add up. The board keeps approving these big projects, but there's no transparency about where the money is going." "Sounds frustrating," Alex said, keeping his voice sympathetic. Emma nodded. "It is. My dad runs the school, but even I can't get straight answers from him. Sometimes I wonder if he's hiding something." Her words confirmed Alex's suspicions. Principal Reed was likely orchestrating the corruption, but Emma's frustration suggested she wasn't involved. She could be useful. "Maybe I can help," Alex said. "I'm good with numbers. If you want, I can take a look." Emma hesitated, then pushed the binder toward him. "Sure. At this point, I'll take any help I can get." As Alex skimmed through the data, he spotted several red flags. Payments were being funneled to shell companies with vague names. Expenses for facility upgrades didn't match what he had observed at the school. He didn't say anything just yet, though. He needed to play this carefully. "Looks complicated," Alex said, closing the binder. "But I think I can help you make sense of it. Let's meet again tomorrow." Emma agreed, and as Alex left the library, he felt a small surge of satisfaction. He was one step closer to uncovering the truth. While Alex worked on gaining Emma's trust, Brock's irritation with him grew. The more Alex stayed calm and unfazed by his bullying, the more Brock tried to push him. One day during gym class, Brock decided to take things further. The class was playing dodgeball, and Brock made Alex his primary target. Every throw was aimed at Alex's chest or head, and Brock laughed every time Alex dodged or stumbled. The other students watched, some laughing nervously, others looking uncomfortable. But Alex wasn't just dodging. He was observing Brock's movements, his posture, his strength, his weaknesses. When one of Brock's throws came too close, Alex caught the ball effortlessly. The gym went silent. Brock's smirk faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Lucky catch, newbie." Alex didn't respond. He simply tossed the ball back and walked off the court, leaving Brock to fume. The display was subtle, but it sent a clear message. Alex wasn't as weak as he seemed. The next evening, Alex met Emma in the library again. This time, he came prepared with printouts of the financial data he had analyzed. "I think I found something," Alex said, spreading the papers on the table. "Look here. These companies receiving payments, they don't actually exist. At least not in any legitimate way." Emma leaned in, her brows furrowed. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying someone's stealing from the school," Alex replied. "And it's big. These amounts aren't small. Whoever's behind this is using the school as a front." Emma's face went pale. "You think my dad's involved?" Alex hesitated. "I don't know for sure, but he's the principal, and these approvals have to go through him. If he's not involved, he's turning a blind eye." Emma sat back, looking conflicted. Alex could see the mix of emotions: hurt, confusion, and anger. She wanted to believe her father was innocent, but the evidence was hard to ignore. "What do we do?" she asked finally. Alex leaned forward, lowering his voice. "The school board meeting next week. They'll probably discuss more of this. If we can get access to that meeting, we might find out who's really behind it." Emma hesitated again, but nodded. "Okay, I'll figure out a way to get us in." As Alex left the library that evening, he felt eyes on him. Turning a corner, he spotted Brock leaning against a locker, watching him with a suspicious glare. "You and Emma seem pretty chummy," Brock said, his tone sharp. "We're just working on council stuff," Alex replied casually. Brock stepped closer, his jaw tightening. "Listen, new kid, I don't know what your deal is, but you don't belong here. Stay out of things that don't concern you." Alex met Brock's gaze, his face unreadable. Noted. Brock smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Good. Don't make me teach you the hard way." As Brock walked off, Alex exhaled slowly. The pressure was mounting, and he knew he had to move carefully. The pieces were falling into place, but the game was far from over. The day of the school board meeting arrived quicker than Alex anticipated. He and Emma had spent the past week preparing. Emma had managed to secure access by volunteering to present a student council report at the meeting. It wasn't unusual for the council president to attend, but bringing Alex along was a risk. "You sure about this?" she asked as they waited outside the boardroom. Alex nodded. "If we don't do this, we'll never know the truth." Emma still looked uneasy. She had begun to trust Alex, but part of her worried about what they might uncover, especially if her father was involved. Inside the boardroom, the air was tense and formal. A long table stretched across the room, with the school board members seated at one end. Principal Reed sat near the center, his face calm but unreadable. At the head of the table was Mr. Garrett, Brock's father. He exuded confidence, his expensive suit and commanding presence making it clear he was in charge. Emma gave her presentation first, summarizing student concerns and activities. As she spoke, Alex scanned the room, observing every detail: the way Mr. Garrett exchanged glances with Principal Reed, the murmured side conversations among other board members, and the guarded expressions on their faces. Something was definitely being hidden here. When Emma finished, Mr. Garrett gave her a polite nod. "Thank you, Miss Reed. That will be all." But Emma didn't leave. Instead, she took a deep breath and said, "Actually, I'd like to bring up a concern about the budget." The room fell silent. Principal Reed's face tightened, and Mr. Garrett's polite expression shifted to mild annoyance. "What about the budget?" Mr. Garrett asked, his tone sharp. Emma gestured to Alex. "This is Alex. He's been helping me review the financial reports, and we found some discrepancies. Large payments to untraceable companies. I think they need to be addressed." The tension in the room thickened. Principal Reed shot Emma a warning look, but she didn't back down. Alex stepped forward, placing the financial printouts on the table. "These payments," Alex said calmly, pointing to the documents, "don't align with any of the school's actual needs. They're being funneled to accounts that don't seem legitimate." Mr. Garrett's smile vanished. "And who are you to make such accusations? You're a student. You have no idea how these things work." "Maybe not," Alex said, his voice steady. "But the numbers don't lie." The room erupted in murmurs. Principal Reed stood abruptly, his voice firm. "This is highly inappropriate. Emma, you've overstepped. You and your friend need to leave." Emma's face turned red with embarrassment, but Alex didn't move. Instead, he pressed a button on his watch, activating a hidden microphone he planted earlier. A small device in his pocket began recording the conversation. "I don't think we're the ones who've overstepped," Alex said, his tone turning icy. Before anyone could respond, the door to the boardroom burst open. Brock stormed in, his face a mix of anger and confusion. "Dad, what's going on?" he demanded, looking at Mr. Garrett. "This doesn't concern you, Brock," Mr. Garrett snapped, his composure slipping for the first time. "It does if it involves him," Brock said, pointing at Alex. "This kid's been poking around where he doesn't belong." Mr. Garrett's eyes narrowed, and Alex knew he had to act quickly. "Funny," Alex said, his voice calm but cutting. "I could say the same about you and your dad." The room went silent again, the weight of Alex's words hanging in the air. Mr. Garrett stood, his face red with anger. "I don't know who you think you are, but you've crossed the line." Alex reached into his bag and pulled out more documents, copies of emails, bank transfers, and other evidence he'd compiled. "These are records of payments made to shell companies tied to offshore accounts. They lead back to you and Principal Reed." Emma looked at her father in disbelief. "Dad, is this true?" Principal Reed didn't answer, his face pale. Mr. Garrett, however, laughed bitterly. "This is ridiculous. You think some kid can just walk in here and—" Before he could finish, the sound of sirens echoed outside the building. Moments later, 2 agents in suits entered the room, flashing badges. "Mr. Garrett, Principal Reed," one of them said, "you're both under investigation for embezzlement and conspiracy." The room erupted into chaos. Board members whispered in shock, and Brock stared at his father, his confidence shattered. Alex stepped back, letting the agents take over. His job was done. The next day, the news spread across Cedar High like wildfire. Principal Reed had been placed on administrative leave, and Mr. Garrett was facing criminal charges. The school board was under intense scrutiny, and students whispered about how it all started with Emma and the new kid. Brock didn't show up to school, and his friends kept their distance from Alex. For once, the bullies seemed to have lost their power. Emma found Alex sitting alone in the library again, just as he had on his first day. She sat across from him, her expression a mix of gratitude and confusion. "So, who are you really?" she asked. Alex smiled faintly. "Just a transfer student." Emma didn't press further. She nodded, understanding that some questions didn't need answers. As Alex packed up his things and left the library, he felt a sense of accomplishment. The mission was over, but the impact would last. Cedar High was no longer just another school. It was a place where Alex had made a difference, and as he walked down the hallway, he knew he'd be ready for whatever came next.